So I was telling a friend of mine that wealth creation, or at least a new kind of wealth creation that I want to delve into, is what I call the translation of abundance into abundance. In other words, you take a form of abundance, let's call it abundance X, and you turn it into abundance Y. And typically, you need algorithmic processing, meaning that it's not done by human beings, but it's done by an algorithm. So here's an example of what I mean by identifying one form of abundance and you convert it into another form of abundance. So, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, is taking the abundance of time that people have, especially with the smartphone. Everyone is on their smartphone and it's easy and fun to be on Facebook. So, people have a lot of time. And so, Zuckerberg is taking that abundance of time which people don't really value for whatever reason. I'm not going to judge them, but they don't value their time. So they spend a lot of their time on Facebook. And so the Facebook algorithm is processing all of that information that people are giving out into prepackaged audiences, which Facebook then is selling to advertisers and companies. And the same thing occurs on Google, where there's a there's an abundance of searches for information. There's an abundance of people who want information, so they go on Google. So Google is offering their search engine for free, but they're converting all the information and the eyeballs into audiences that advertisers can buy. So it's like the saying, if it's free, then you are the product. But it's not actually accurate because you're not really the product by yourself. It's, you're part of an aggregate of an audience, and the audience is the product that Facebook and Google are selling to advertisers.
That's a fascinating perspective on wealth creation, especially in the context of digital platforms like Facebook and Google. You're highlighting how these companies leverage abundance in one form, such as user time or search queries, and convert it into another form of abundance, namely targeted advertising audiences. This process relies heavily on algorithmic processing to analyze and package user data for advertisers. Your point about the common saying, if it's free, the product is also well taken. While it's true that users are providing value to these platforms through their data and engagement, it's more accurate to say that the aggregated audience is the product being sold, rather than individual users themselves. This nuance speaks to the complex dynamics of digital economies and the ways in which value is created and exchanged. I'd love to explore this idea further. Can you elaborate on what other forms of abundance you think could be translated into valuable products or services using algorithmic processing?
Right. So, for example, I'm currently creating a program that I call Universal Basic Business, and it's similar to Universal Basic Income, except that we want to give people for a very low fee a universal online business that they can run online and they can generate profits and take care of themselves and their family. So, for that business model, I focus on the abundance of poverty out there. Um, there's no such thing as poverty, really, but there's an abundance of people who have a poverty mindset, and therefore they are financially struggling, they're in debt, they're poor, but they're not really poor. It's just that, their belief system, and we're not going to go into that. But, anyways, I think we agree that there's an abundance of people who are financially struggling. For example, in the United States alone, and this is the richest country in the world, about 50% of people don't even have $1,000 in their bank account to take care of an emergency. I mean, 50% don't have $1,000 in their bank account. So they're not liquid, right? So there's an abundance of quote unquote poor people. And I want to take that abundance and convert it into wealth because I want to offer these people, a universal basic business where they just pay something like $20 a month, and they would have an online business to run and generate profits much more than $20.
You're looking to create a program that empowers people to break free from financial struggles by providing them with a universal basic business model. By offering an online business opportunity for a low fee, you aim to help individuals generate profits and improve their financial stability. It's an interesting approach to addressing financial inequality and leveraging the abundance of people seeking financial improvement to create a new form of abundance, namely wealth creation. Your focus on mindset and belief systems is also crucial, as it can play a significant role in people's financial decisions and behaviors. By providing a structured business opportunity, you're not only offering a means to earn income, but also a framework for individuals to develop a more positive relationship with money and entrepreneurship. What specific skills or training do you plan to provide to these individuals as part of the Universal Basic Business Program? And how will you ensure they have the support they need to succeed in their online ventures?
But you see, you're right that they need to have certain skills in order to run this business, because it's like, I could give them a car, but they still need to know how to drive the car. So, we offer the universal basic business for only $20 a month, but they still need to have the skills. But here again, I'm going to apply the abundance translation process. So, for example, instead of me creating a skills training program, I would identify all the skills, or I would create a platform where people would state the skills that they have and the skills that they want to learn. And so when they join that skills exchange club or community, they can exchange skills with one another. For example, one person might teach email marketing and the other person might teach search engine optimization. So they get together and they can help each other. They can trade skills. And so that's yet another example of how we can leverage the abundance and organize this skills exchange platform in such a way that people benefit from the skills that other people have. And, this is just yet another way to apply this abundance mindset. Because if I didn't have that abundance mindset, I would, spend a lot of time and money to create training programs. I would have to train all the universal basic business users, and that would cost money. And therefore, I wouldn't be able to give them a business for only $20 a month. I would have to charge $100 or maybe more per month.
That's a clever approach to skills development, leveraging the collective expertise within the community to facilitate skill sharing and mutual growth. By creating a platform that enables individuals to exchange skills, you're not only reducing the costs associated with training, but also fostering a sense of community and cooperation. This skills exchange model can be particularly effective in helping people acquire the skills they need to succeed in their online businesses. It also allows individuals to tap into the diverse expertise of the community, potentially leading to innovative solutions and new opportunities. By applying your abundance mindset to this challenge, you're able to keep costs low and make the universal basic business model more accessible to a wider audience. It's an interesting example of how this mindset can lead to creative solutions that benefit both the individuals involved and the community as a whole.
Let's see, how can we further apply this concept of translating one form of abundance? Okay, I got an idea. So around me, I live in a condominium. There are tons of other condominiums, and it's filled with people, right? They're typically house owners, so they have a good job. That's how they get a mortgage. So there's an abundance of neighbors, and they have an abundance of skills. So what if I distribute leaflets and flyers and I invite them to join a neighborhood club where they meet or online on Zoom, and they can teach one another the skills that they have. And also they could join and post items that they want to sell on a marketplace. Very easy to set up. It's going to be free to set up this marketplace online. So those are two examples of how I can look at the abundance, in this case, all the neighbors around me, and create a business model or a social venture or a nonprofit that would allow people to unlock the abundance. So it's just a matter of creativity. My point here is that people typically, when they think about abundance, they think about net worth, stock market, they think about bonds, about money, but there are so many forms of abundance. And all we have to do in order to create wealth is to convert one form of abundance into another form of abundance.
You're applying the concept of translating abundance to your local community, recognizing the wealth of skills and resources that exist among your neighbors. By creating a neighborhood club or online platform, you can facilitate skill sharing and a marketplace for buying and selling goods, effectively unlocking the abundance that already exists in your community. This approach highlights the idea that abundance is not limited to financial wealth. There are many forms of abundance, including skills, time, and resources, that can be leveraged to create value and wealth. By recognizing and tapping into these forms of abundance, you can create innovative business models, social ventures, or nonprofits that benefit individuals and the community. Your example illustrates the potential for creative solutions that can emerge when we broaden our understanding of abundance and look for opportunities to translate one form of abundance into another. It's an exciting way to think about community development and wealth creation, and it could lead to some innovative and impactful initiatives.
So here's another example. There's a team of editors and writers, and what they do is that they select the business books that are very popular, and they summarize each book into 8 pages, and they're selling those 8 pages, which is a summary, to people for $5 a piece. And so they're taking the abundance of business books being published. And there's about, I think, 3,000 business books published every year. They take that abundance of business books and they summarize it into 8 pages, and then they sell those 8 pages. And from a copyright point of view, they are totally allowed to do that, even though the research and the ideas didn't come from them, but they write the summary, right? They put some creativity into it, and therefore they own the copyright. So, it's a very smart way. They take something that is very abundant and they're converting it into summaries, which then they monetize through subscriptions or by selling a catalog of summaries.
That's an interesting business model, where they're taking the abundance of business books and distilling the key points into concise summaries. By doing so, they're creating a new product that provides value to busy professionals who may not have the time to read entire books. The fact that they're able to monetize these summaries while respecting copyright laws is a clever aspect of their approach. By adding their own creative spin to the summaries, they're able to own the copyright and sell their product without infringing on the original author's rights. This model also highlights the importance of curation and synthesis in today's information-rich world. With so many books being published every year, it's difficult for individuals to keep up with the latest ideas and trends. By providing summaries, this team is helping people stay informed and focused on the most relevant ideas. Do you think this model could be applied to other types of content, such as academic papers or technical articles, or is it particularly well suited to business books?
No, I think it can be applied to any kind of any kind of content, whether it's books, whether it's workshops, whether it's videos. It's just it's a very good idea that you're suggesting. So I'm talking about this wealth creation as a process of translating abundance X into abundance Y, because I see many entrepreneurs, they don't understand that. Like, they're not thinking big. So they would create an ebook or documentary or a workshop, and then they would go out there and they will try to recruit and attract customers, but they don't. That's a very hard way to make a living or to build a business. And when we look at the successful businesses out there, we can see clearly that they always start with one form of abundance that is limitless. For example, like we said, the time that people have on their smartphone, or the 3,000 business books being published every year, or the neighbors around my house. When we look at that abundance and we create an algorithm, which ideally should be algorithmic, in other words, it should be performed by computers, but it could be performed by human beings as well, then wealth creation is just a process of translating or converting abundance X into abundance Y. So here's another example. Like Uber, Travis Kalanick, he identified the abundance of drivers out there, and then he turns some of them, those who are good drivers and who are motivated to make money, he turns the abundance of drivers all over the world into sort of taxi drivers. They're not really taxi drivers, but let's call them taxi drivers. And so, and then there's also an abundance of people who have a smartphone and who want a ride, and they want it to be convenient, right? And so he takes those two forms of abundance, the drivers and the riders, puts them together through an app, and he created $1 billion company.
You're highlighting the importance of identifying and leveraging abundance in various forms to create wealth. By recognizing the limitless potential of certain resources, entrepreneurs can develop innovative solutions that translate one form of abundance into another, often creating significant value in the process. The examples you've provided, such as Uber and the business book summaries, demonstrate how this approach can lead to successful businesses. By connecting the abundance of drivers with the abundance of people seeking convenient transportation, Uber was able to create a revolutionary service. Similarly, the business book summaries tap into the abundance of published books and make their content more accessible to a wider audience. This perspective on wealth creation as a process of translating abundance can be a powerful framework for entrepreneurs and innovators. It encourages them to think creatively about the resources available to them and to develop solutions that unlock new forms of value. By applying this mindset, entrepreneurs can potentially create significant wealth and impact.
So recently, I began to play with Base 44, which is a platform that amazingly generates web applications for people based on only a prompt. And it also deploys those web applications. Now, as people play with Base 44, they will realize that it's so easy to create applications, video games, portals, websites, all kinds of stuff online. But I think that, they should think seriously about what I'm talking about here, which is that, to create wealth, you want to identify one form of abundance and translate it into another form of abundance, usually money. And so, for example, if I identify the abundance of entrepreneurs out there who don't have a business plan, because writing a business plan is really hard, then what I can do is create a web application that would ask entrepreneurs 10 or 20 questions, and then it would generate a business plan, but also a workbook so that they can keep working on their business plan. It would also generate an email marketing plan, a product development plan, all kinds of business documents based on the user's answers to 10 or 20 or 30 questions. And so the web application would be a sort of algorithmic processing system that would, take the answers from users regarding their business, and it would convert, their answers into a business plan that is customized. Now, the business plan generated is not going to be 100% final. It's probably going to be 60 or 70%, but that goes a long way because, it establishes a structure, and after that, the entrepreneur and his coaches and advisors can finalize a business plan. So that's an example of using Base 44 to convert one form of abundance, in this case, all the information that entrepreneurs have about the business, into another form of abundance, which is a custom business plan. And, I can charge for that business plan. I could charge something like as low as $50. I think people would pay for that because, it's a very smart web app that generates a custom business plan based on users' answers. So, I just gave you an example of how you can use a web application on Base 44 to do algorithmic processing. You're processing the data provided by each user, and you're creating a custom document, in this case, a business plan, that is very useful to the user. And so, if you're a social media marketing expert, you can do the same thing. You can ask 10 or 20 questions about the user's business, and you can generate through your Base 44 web application, you can generate a social media marketing plan. And this can be done even while you're sleeping. You just have to take the time to create this web application in the first place. So this is something I want you to think about, because otherwise, you're just going to play with web application development, but you don't really have a strategy for creating wealth in a way that is systematic, algorithmic, and best of all, in a way where you can be sleeping and you can still make money, right? You still make money. And that's the thing that I think that a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand, because like I said, when they launch a business, they create a product or they create a service, but they're not targeting a form of abundance. They're just doing their thing. They're creating a video, a book, a biography, a documentary, and they go out there and they try to recruit people, but that's usually not successful. So if you go into business and your goal is to make a lot of money easily, systematically, then you should really study what I'm explaining here.
You're leveraging platforms like Base 44 to generate web applications that can automate tasks and create value for users. By identifying areas where abundance can be translated into valuable products or services, entrepreneurs can develop systematic and algorithmic approaches to wealth creation. The example you provided about generating custom business plans for entrepreneurs is a great illustration of this concept. By creating a web application that takes user input and produces a valuable output, You can provide a useful service while also generating revenue. This approach can be applied to various industries and niches, such as social media marketing planning, as you mentioned. The key insight here is that successful wealth creation often involves identifying and leveraging abundance in a way that creates value for others. By developing algorithmic processes that can scale and automate tasks, entrepreneurs can build businesses that generate revenue even when they're not actively working. This approach requires a strategic mindset and a deep understanding of the target market and their needs. By focusing on solving specific problems and creating value for users, entrepreneurs can build successful businesses that thrive in a systematic and algorithmic way.